Hi, I'm Laura Womack, and welcome to Bloom Where You're Planted, a podcast hosted and sponsored by Never Too Late Cafe. And today I have with me a longtime music friend, and I'll let her introduce herself and tell me where she's at living currently.
Hi, I'm Teresa Storch. I live in Longmont, Colorado right now. Laura and I met way back in Boston, Massachusetts. I think it was actually Watertown, a suburb of Boston, or where I lived in Somerville, I think, at the time. But I came back out to Colorado in 2009. So I've been here for a while.
To go back down memory lane, we met at a nonprofit fair.
That's right.
Volunteer fair.
That's so funny.
Yeah, the high-tech industry had gone kaput in New England, well across the country, and so that's how we...
What year was that? Do you remember? Oh, it was 2001.
Was it?
Yeah, it was 2001. It was right after 9/11. It had to be that fall or winter, maybe. It might have been 2002, early 2002.
Because I started the nonprofit in 2000.
Okay.
So sometime in between there, because I know we actually went to 9/11 site together at one point, and I forgot about
that was in like 03 maybe, or maybe 02. I had a software job that I got laid off from in August of 2001. And then 9/11 happened literally weeks later, and there were no jobs. I could not find a job as a software engineer at the time. And then, so I was just looking for things to do with my time, honestly. So I started looking for volunteer work, thinking about, what can I do to help the world? You know, I was playing music in the subways to make a living and living on unemployment. And I spent 7 months doing that and looking for things like volunteer work. And so I think somewhere in there, it was between September of 01 to March of 02. Somewhere in that time frame, I believe we met.
So I was going to have you, for people, I'm in the Midwest, they may not know what busking is. So can you explain?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Busking is just anyone who plays or is a street performer. A busker is a street performer. I'm sure it's sort of a British term, maybe, but it's pretty commonly used now I was a musician who would perform in the subways and on the streets in an area called Harvard Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And there's busking, and other places. New York City has buskers in their subway system. All over the world, anyone who's street performing, they're a busker.
Well, I can remember hearing a phone call where you were telling someone that you had made $13, and you were so excited.
I'm sure. I feel like the first time I busked, maybe it was $13. I know I remember making $25 and being excited. The first time I busked, I didn't even put out a guitar case or anything to collect money. I was just trying to get the nerve up to play music in public. And so my boyfriend at the time, he helped me support me and help me get my gear out and set it up on the street. I had a little battery powered amplifier that I plugged my guitar into and a microphone I set up, and I played for a few hours, and people left money. I can't remember how they gave us money. I think they just I must have just handed it to me. I don't remember. And then after that, I had a little box to put out or something to collect money. That's how I survived.
So when I had the nonprofit in Watertown, I know that we had some open mic nights, and you performed and brought your music buddies. And
I bring my music friends to play and be part of it.
So we had a couple that had, there was a 50s night and a medieval theme. Do you remember all of these?
I forgot. Yeah, we had the themes, or we had to dress up. That's right.
So actually, those were benefits. So I don't know if you knew that, but one time we gave someone that we knew, their child had leukemia, and we gave them some money from the open mic. And I don't know if you knew this, but in Watertown, you could not dance at a club. It was forbidden. Like
weird.
So we did have something another time at two different locations, but anyway, one was a private club and you could then, but I just thought people were like, really? I said, no, it was a city ordinance. You couldn't dance in Watertown. So
Puritans who settled the area still have a hold on.
So
crazy.
And during that time, I know we had a songwriting time. I don't know if you remember that. You had a friend named Tim did a songwriting event. It was
okay.
So yeah, and then
we did the Artist Way too.
Yes, and you know that I still do my pages.
Oh, good for you. Oh, good. I started them again. Well, I redid the Artist Way last year with some friends in Colorado, so I've been doing it off and on.
I am hooked on the process. I have a bunch of her books, and actually one of her most recent books has Never Too Late in it. And I was, I have to have that, So,
Well, we're talking about Julie Cameron. If anyone doesn't know this, Julie Cameron has a fabulous book called The Artist's Way, which is sort of a process or that you could follow, sort of a 12-week program she created where you read and read a chapter and do sort of the tasks that she has written out for you. And part of the suggested tasks is to do a writing called morning pages, where you write 3 pages every morning, just stream of consciousness. So it's very useful for artists, and anyone really. It helps you clear out the junk and sort of get clear on what you want to create.
And the artist date.
That's so great. Oh, what?
You do the artist date? Remember the one?
And then you do an artist date. Yes, that's another thing. That's right. Where you take yourself out. You have to go out alone, and you do just sort of a little adventure to I guess the goal is to excite your inner artist child, to do something fun and simple, and it doesn't have to be anything expensive, or some kind of adventure that appeals to you.
Definitely. I know sometimes, and that's really hard to work into a schedule sometimes, just like, to make time for yourself sometimes is difficult. I know I've always experienced that. So anyway, let's back up a little bit and talk about where you went to school originally. So you're from Nebraska originally?
I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. Went to school in Colorado, where I live now, in Golden, a school called the Colorado School of Mines, which is just an engineering school, because I was a math and science kid. That's really where I excelled. But I always loved the arts and was a dancer. I was a ballet dancer with Ballet Omaha while growing up in Omaha, and then I joined Boulder Ballet when I moved to Colorado. And it's both of those were smaller regional ballet companies that would take part-time dancers like myself and join, let us perform.
Then how did you get to Boston? Tell me that, because I thought it was the ballet.
No, Boston's really interesting. So I was, let's see, gosh, what year was this? 97-ish. I started taking a voice class. When I graduated college, I really decided that I wanted to figure out how to be a musician. I'd sung in choir. I'd taken a few guitar lessons when I was young. But I had this real desire to write songs. This came to me while I was in college, because I went to see a lot of live music, and I just was so drawn to Red Rocks. The amphitheater was right near where I went to college. So I saw a lot of amazing performers, and I just had would go to these shows and have this ache of, like, this is what I want to do. And so after college, I started guitar lessons. I found a voice class, which was all about getting over your fear of singing in front of people alone. It was sort of a therapy / voice lesson, performance class. And so within that, during that time, I ended up with a roommate who was from Boston. And she happened to know a lot of musicians in Boston. She was friends with like her girlfriend, her former girlfriend, I guess at that point, they were just friends at that point, was one of the Boston musicians. And so she just had met all these amazing artists. And while we were roommates in Boulder, she played this music for me. And I had this weird just feeling I wanted to be out there amongst that scene. Because I didn't really know anyone in Boulder, or I didn't know many musicians at all. Because I hadn't done enough. I had done a couple open mics, in Colorado. So in the end, and then there's this other thing that drew me. I just wanted to get away from the life I'd had to sort of create a new one. So I felt like I had to leave your life and go somewhere completely different where no one knew me. It was really fascinating. So I packed it. First I applied for jobs. So I got the software job in Cambridge. And by this point, by the time I was moving out, the woman who had been my roommate had moved back. She was just here for a couple of years of school. So she went back to Boston. And so I went to the area where she was living, which is Somerville, Massachusetts, and stayed with her for a little bit. We started this new job and then found my way into the music scene, started doing open mics and such. So it really was a random, just, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. Sometimes I just think it was this voice in my head that kept saying, go out there. Wow. It kept pulling me there.
I couldn't remember how you ended up there. It's funny that all the times that we've talked, it really didn't come up. So,
yeah, I don't know if I've ever explained that to you.
And then I moved back in 2006 to my home state of Ohio and took care of my mom during that time. And so I know one time you were on tour. Oh, I can remember your first tour. You freaked
me
out.
I have to show you something. I know they can't see us on the podcast, but I still have the little piece of driftwood you gave me.
Oh, really?
I still have that.
We'll take a picture and we will definitely make sure that it gets put on there. So.
She gave Laura, when I was about to do this first tour, the first time I ever took off from the day job and had booked 3 weeks of shows, driving across country, basically going from Boston to Colorado and back. I was so stressed out and afraid. I didn't know what I was doing. I was really scared. And I saw Laura I saw you the day before. I think I was leaving, right? Or really close to.
And you were there at the retreat.
I was at the retreat, that's right. And she gave me this piece of driftwood, a little sliver that was shaped like an arrow. And you said something about it'll always help you find your way home, I think. Yeah. Something like that to me about it. And I thought that's really cool.
Whatever home would be for you. Because through the years, that's been many places. So that was your first tour. And then on one of your tours, you came here.
Where did I play? Did I play somewhere?
You played here. And
we did a house concert.
Yeah. And I tell you, you made such an impression on my friend and her son. It was amazing. He says, oh, yeah, I remember that. It was probably his first. I think he played percussion or something in the background or something. I had a hand drum. So anyway, it was cool. Mm-hmm. And then you were the one that told me it was 14. I had done a short screenplay and you let me use a song of yours in it. And then you came out for red carpet, our premiere night. So that was cool.
Yeah, I played there too. You let me, played a song or two.
Yep. So that's from 14 until now. I know, tell me about when you left Boston. There's a little story about you kind of knew or something.
Gosh. So leave Boston. When I would tour, so between, my first tour was 2003 and leaving in 2009, I did a bunch of tours back and forth across the country and family, my family was mainly still here in Nebraska and Colorado. And particularly here in Longmont, my sister lived and she had two little boys by that time. By 2009, she had two little boys that I missed terribly when I would leave. They were, how old would they be? 2 and 6, I think, at that point. And it's so interesting because right before we just talked, they just came by. They live, less than a mile from us, from where I live now. And I'm so happy to be back near them. I've gotten to watch them grow up, basically. Like being able to come back in 2009, I got to be sort of in their lives and babysit and do all these things. So they're my other kids. I call them my other kids.
Song that came about from
a song
when I thought someone said that you had written a song when you knew it was time to leave Boston.
Oh yeah. So I do. In 2008, I wrote a song called Time to Go.
Okay.
And so it was a year. I didn't leave for a year, but I wrote it fall of 2008. And really, because at that point I realized I was like collecting cardboard boxes. Why am I keeping these cardboard boxes? and just really feeling stuck, feeling that I was living like I was in college. So I was in my 30s, getting to late 30s at that point, mid to late 30s. And feeling, had 2 roommates, it's expensive in Boston. And I just thought, and then I would go out west and see my family, and I miss these little boys. And I just really kept feeling drawn, like, I need to go back. It's time to go back. And it was very, very hard to leave Boston. It was quite emotionally, gosh, I just cried and cried. Yet I knew I needed to, I don't know, I guess I always just kind of followed this voice that I have that sort of tells me what to do.
Well, I want to thank Peter for being so patient. Reminiscing. And so I'm glad that worked out. So,
like marrying this guy who's next to me now. That was another thing that I was.
So when you got here, you eventually got a different job in engineering, or you were doing book editing for a while. And
right, yeah, I did lots of part-time work for about 8 years, from 2003 to 2012. 2012. I worked just like part-time, whatever I could find. And I had a good technical editing position where it was sort of a freelance gig editing software books. So it kept me in the software world and allowed me, when I decided finally end of 2011 to start looking for jobs and get off the road. I just got burned out from driving, burned out from not having a boyfriend, being alone all the time. There's something really freeing about the touring life. It was really amazing. And I loved it. I got to see so much of the country and visit people all over. And yet I just wanted to settle a little bit more and have a little more security. So I started looking for software jobs based on sort of what I read and studied in these software books, and was able to, luckily enough, have a job interview with someone who happens to be standing next to me. It's really kind of a fun story. I found this company in Boulder, a friend recommended I interview at, and I went into this interview and I said, my resume is a little strange because I've been a touring singer-songwriter for the last 10 years or so. And he said, well, that's okay. I'm a guitarist who used to tour with a band out of New Jersey. And I'm like, okay, guess what I do. And I ended up getting this job working under this lovely person who then many years later now became my husband, which is kind of crazy.
So Peter, are you from Colorado?
No, I'm from New Jersey originally.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but we met in Colorado. So I understood his New Jersey sarcasm.
So how did you end up in Colorado?
My story is very different from Teresa's in the fact that it wasn't so much the wanting to be back with family and such. It was more along the lines of, in 2006, my mother, bottom line is it started with a cancer diagnosis of my mother. And she was like, she had missed a mastectomy. She missed a Mammogram, thank you. And then so she was a year overdue, and she went in for one. She wound up having stage 3 breast cancer diagnosis. So there was this extreme panic and period of time in 2006, I believe, where it was a sense of, wow, life is really short. You should, it's kind of like a wake up call of it's time to pay attention to the things we really want to do and kind of take action on things as opposed to kind of just going through the motions. And I had, even though I'm a musician, I was very much, in the corporate world and, kind of playing, in evenings and weekends when I could, but I had a serious full-time job, and doing that sort of scenario. So it was life before there were children. I was married at the time, and there was a mutual decision to say, hey, if we want to take an adventure and do something different before we have children, and what better time than now? And one place that my ex-wife and I both really, really loved was Boulder, Colorado. It was just a place we thought, if we're gonna live somewhere, we might as well live where we want. Because my entire family also at this point had pretty much fled the East Coast. My brother had moved out to Colorado. My folks were living in Florida. And the only thing that was keeping me in New Jersey was the job that I had that I was kind of over with. I had been there for 11 years, and it was enough time. So long story short, we kind of we found a house out here, moved out here, gave notice, and kind of moved out. And the intention was to, take 6 months off and then look for a job. And then, that 6 months happened. And then things started going squirrely in the fall of 2007 with the economy and such. It was the beginning of scariness. So it was probably not the smartest time to quit your job, not work for 6 months, and then move to a city where you don't know anybody and try to get into the world. So let's say I learned some valuable life lessons in the process.
So to kind of bring us up to now, you play music together.
We do.
That is it, the Teresa Storch duo? Is that what you're going by now, or have you settled?
This is a constant point of discussion. Do we need a name? Do we need a duo name? Or sometimes we call ourselves Teresa and Peter, yet we learned the hard way that if you call yourselves Teresa and Peter, you need a website.
Well, you need a way for people to find you.
Teresa, a way to find you online. Right. And everything we have has been under teresastorch.com. That's where, because I started this trajectory so long ago and owned the domain, and we have a band as well. So we've kind of just kept Teresa Storch Duo.
Well, Teresa Storch or Teresa Storch Band.
Or Teresa Storch Band.
Kind of the moniker. Everything's Teresa Storch something. So depending on it depends on what Teresa Storch is up to at the moment.
How many people want to play with me?
But the bottom line is, we just go with, we have teresastorch.com. We have the Teresa Storch, pages on Facebook and such, and that is simple enough for us to be able to be known by. And until a better idea comes along, quite frankly, I play in other bands. I do different things, but I don't really do stuff under my own name specifically, because I'm not a singer songwriter like Teresa is. I'm more of a, I'm a sideman. I'm a guitar player. So I specialize in the diddly bits to enhance people who have talent like Teresa.
You have lots of
You're a very good.
It actually makes me sound way better.
You're very good. What's
you.
the 11, the group 11? Do you still have that?
Oh, Sharp 11. That was one version of our band, Teresa Storch and the Sharp 11.
Notice the pattern of it's always Teresa Storch and something.
Because it's always been me, and then me finding anyone who wants to play with me. I had a version of the band called the Storchestra in Boston. That was literally whatever of my friends were available.
Sharp 11 was an incarnation of the band after Come Clean came out. And it was the group that we played with primarily here in this area that also had a saxophonist like Mark Strivings and a fiddle player. And they dubbed themselves the Fornication Section, which is always kind of fun.
Fiddle and horn section.
But the whole idea is between it being a Sharp 11 is, it's another way of referring to, in musical terms, a flat 5. So it was a goofy musical joke and such like that. And, the Sharp 11 has the double entendre. It's like, oh, is this like well-dressed 11 people kind of thing? Or is it, musical term, that sort of stuff. So that's where that came from. Kind of like Ben Folds 5. There's only 3 people in it. Things like that.
People guessing. So you had tours that you've gone on overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how that started. That is exciting. How did that happen?
Well, from the years of me doing my own thing, being like a solo artist, I would attend these conferences. They're called the International Folk Alliance Conference. So people from all over will descend on a city, typically the U.S. They've had them in Canada a few times because it is international. But people from all over come, and I happened to meet a lovely gentleman by the name of Rob Ellen at one of those conferences who's from Scotland, and he is a music promoter specializing in roots and Americana style. So bluesy, traditional, but a lot of folk singer-songwriter, kind of like sort of a blend of what I do, which was interesting. I happened to be able to play for him, and he loved my music. He loved the new album, which was Come Clean. That was the album I just put out. And I ended up hiring him to do some promotion work with that album, literally soon thereafter I met him. And so we used that album as sort of a jumping point to get some reviews and get sort of known out in Europe. He's still in Scotland. He sort of travels around the UK a bit, but he helped us basically after, let's see, what year was, so then it was 20. Okay, so I released it, I have to think of the dates. I released at the end of 2014, but I met him early 2015. And so I promoted the album in Europe with his help in 2015. And then by 2016, we were able to then follow up on that with a tour. So we were able to go book a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks. I've forgotten how long we went for that first tour, around Ireland, England, Scotland, the Netherlands, and get ourselves over there and make enough money to at least pay for the plane ticket. You kind of start with just, can I make enough to survive and probably not gain any profit? And then hopefully you build on that each time. So now we've gone 3 times. Each one's been more fun and bigger than the last. And we played the last one we did was 2019. We were able to play a huge festival called the Belgium Festival. It's about 40,000 people. We did not play on the big stage. There was just many small stages, but it was amazing to be there in Scotland, near a town called Inverness, northern Scotland.
Wow, what an experience. I mean, that's amazing. Just touring cross country is one thing, and to go overseas and everything. And it's just been an amazing ride, I'd say, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And you just, as you do it, you keep connecting with more people, and hopefully you can come back to the same places. Or there was a lovely cafe I played in the Netherlands that has since shut down, and the owners are so sweet, but they've moved to Portugal. So they say, come to Portugal now. I've never been to Portugal. So that might have to be a stop again, a new stop at the next tour, if we can make it there. You never know. And it does take a little elbow grease. It takes a lot of elbow grease, a lot of time contacting venues and trying to book ourselves. We've learned a lot along the way. We've learned about the importance of having content and video, and these days it's really important to have like live video and also like lyric videos and a YouTube presence and Instagram, and all those things just are so much work. So we aren't the greatest promoters because we have day jobs and kids and such that we keep us super busy, which I wish we had more time to do the work that has to be done to really be a musician. It's so much. It's like 3 jobs being a musician.
Yeah. And, I know that if you were doing the bookkeeping and trying to write and promote and publish, and there's a lot of aspects to it that you kind of lose the fun of it if you have to deal with just the paperwork part or just the scheduling part. I know there's just a lot of background stuff in anything, and you want to be able to stick with what you do best and what you enjoy. So, and so that's come into helping. That's how Never Too Late Cafe started, was to promote creative people. So, and
Thank you.
So
thanks for doing this.
So this podcast, Bloom Where You're Planted. Bloom doesn't necessarily have to be geographically where you are, but sometimes it is. Like not long ago, I talked to another singer-songwriter, and his was more where he was in his life, what stage. But so what does that phrase mean to you? Bloom Where You're Planted?
Gosh, I found it really interesting to go from where I really started in Boston as a musician. I still call it my music family out there. I still go back. I visit them when I can. And so I feel like I initially bloomed there, and then I got transplanted back to Colorado. Well, I guess, sort of like I sort of started my music life in Colorado, but I didn't really grow a lot until I got to Boston. So now coming back here, it's been an interesting ride. It's been a little difficult to get back going, and building a band and building a following. And then, of course, now with the pandemic, everyone has struggled to be a musician in any whatever form they are. So we're really excited now. I think we're finally looking at this new record we've been working on. We're finally connecting with more musicians here, finding the people that really feed us and, creatively but in Colorado. And it seemed a lot easier to find a scene, to find a group of musicians in Boston. I don't know if it's geographically Boston's smaller, more people, more venues. Here it's I have to drive a little bit if I want to get out and about. And then we've had the busy lives of actually still working day jobs and stuff. So it's just been taking us longer. And that is where I think we're finally blooming. I feel like we're finally excited and ready to really get involved in our music scene and be part of it and get known here in Colorado. And finding Peter, I didn't find him till I came back to Colorado. So grateful to have a partner that is in my music life with me. And I missed that. I was really wanting that for so long as I traveled alone.
I remember.
Who knew, here, just stopping traveling, I found. Go ahead, sorry.
What was the dream? I remember you wanted someone to be a part of music with you, and by golly, you got it.
Yeah, it just took stopping touring and staying in one place and getting a job. It's just hilarious, though, the things that brought me to here, which was a dream of, many years ago. Never know.
So, well, as we wind down our time, and you said, what's next? You have a new album you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It has a lot more rock and jam band elements because it's sort of the influence of this lovely gentleman with me. And I used to be a big lover of the jam band scene. I was a big Dave Matthews fan, and Big Hit Todd and the Monsters is a local band, jam band, that I used to see a lot when I was in college. And it's so fascinating to find someone who basically they were taking my lyrics and melodies and things, and he's helping make it rockin'. It's, and there's still some folkier ballads and things that are going to be on the album, but I love where we're going with it. It's very exciting. So it makes me feel like, because he's so much part of the music, I want to put, maybe we're Storch Lacis. That's his last name, Peter Lacis. I don't know. We keep thinking of a new name, but teresastorch.com has been around for so long. I don't know.
Well, I think part of the idea too was a few years ago when we were kind of getting ready to get into the headspace of writing this record and wanting to do this together. I had a strong desire to create a band, and whereas in the past, Teresa typically as a singer-songwriter, it's Teresa Storch and then whomever she's playing with at the time. So whatever musicians that she's put together, but she never really had real long-term bands. They're all very kind of period based and that sort of thing based on what you're up to and where you were living at the time where you were playing. Mm-hmm. So, since we were around here, and I really love there's a certain chemistry that comes out of when you play with the same people often, and you really get into that telepathic space of really listening to each other and being able to play together, that I find incredibly rewarding. And that's one of my favorite things about playing live music is achieving that state. So I really lobbied hard for, let's create a band sound. So something that would be, uniquely us and what we're creating together. So a lot of the music, I know you're talking about being more rocky or that sort of stuff. The fact is you've had rockier stuff on 2 records ago. So it's not really,
it's not new for me.
Not really much of I don't think it's a departure at all. I think it's it's just an evolution and a maturation of your sound, quite honestly. But it's also brings in the fact that what if we also have like this live element, and there can be potential, with the jam thing, if there are opportunities for improvisation or other things there, which you've always had elements of in the past too, with some of your music, it just seemed like the right thing to go. So.
Well, that's exciting. Do you have a date out there or a title, or it's just out there?
Yeah, we started in the studio this summer. Our producer is a guy named Tony Dickinson, who tours with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So he's currently on tour with them over the winter, and we'll get back together with him. We're going to work on some other like vocals and guitars while he's gone. And then, so like the actual finishing up of the recording probably won't be done till the spring. And then you need time to promote and figure out what, getting the word out, publicize, etc., booking tours or shows around, things like CD release shows. So I'm guessing fall of next year, I bet.
Oh,
maybe summer.
I'm saying spring. Because I don't think late spring, early summer.
We won't be ready. We need time to promote it.
Well, I think, but at the same time, will it be an album that comes out all at once? Will it be song by song a little bit? Honestly, we're still talking about this stuff. I mean, yes, we have working titles, but we're also kind of deciding how we want to release, how we want to structure. And, because we love records, we love albums that are put out as a complete work. And I think that's really exciting. But at the same time, we live in a world where people are, you monetize your content in unique ways in order for promotion to get people's attention. So there's a number of things to consider. Quite honestly, we're kind of still putting that strategy together, but we have 10 songs done for the basics. And, we have additional work we're working on right now. So I hope we can get all that done within the first couple of months of 2022. So the album will probably be done by end of Q1. But then it's when we actually release it, and depending on and how that ties into promotion and festivals, because we have new video content we have to create as a result of this. We have other things that go along with promotion that come together. So there's all of this stuff has to come together. Exactly.
Well, keep us posted for that. So, well, listen, our time is coming to a close, and this has been wonderful. I'm so glad that it worked out that Peter could join us. So just keep us posted on, your progress, and maybe we can hop on another time farther down the road. This is Laura Womack signing off from Never Too Late Cafe that hosts and sponsored this podcast, Bloom Where You're Planted.